our country, and we will reunite our country with American heart, American grit, and American hands. I want to thank you all for being here. This is a great honor. It's such an important day to me because I've been talking about this subject for so long, and I've watched politicians destroy this area, this state, this city, and it's so easy to fix, and we're going to fix it better than anybody ever thought even possible. So God bless you all. And now I think on top of all that, I think I have to answer some questions. Can you believe it? So I'll stay here and I'll answer some questions. But thank you all very much, and we appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that was a tremendous amount of information that you've given to us, and we'll see that the questions, you've really answered most of them already.
I think so.
I mean, you've really done a great job. And so what I thought I would do is to jump to a couple personal questions. The first one that I've always been intrigued with, you have an enormous amount of energy. I haven't seen anybody like you in my lifetime that keep on going and going and going, in spite of sometimes some rather negative responses and forces here in our country. How do you do it?
Like a bullet to the ear. So I had parents that were great. It's you have good parents. You sort of, I believe in that theory. It helps. But I have two parents that were energetic. They lived for a long time. They were around for a long time. They were great people. But my father had tremendous energy, and my mother did too. And it's a little bit that, I think, more than anything else. And I enjoy what I do, and I love this, despite I could be right now in the most beautiful ocean on the sand, exposing my really beautiful body, so beautiful, to the sun and the surf, skin cancer, right? To the sun and the surf all over the world. And or I could be in Detroit with you, and I'd rather be in Detroit with you, okay?
That's great. Thanks. You know, we've known each other for a while, and I know your children and I have been just enormously impressed with their values, their lifestyles, and you did a great job raising them. How did you do that? Everybody here loves their kids, and you mentioned about creating an environment where we can pass our businesses down to our children, basically tax-free or something close to that. What did you do with your children to make them so responsible and so involved in everything that you do?
Well, I'm fortunate in that, they're smart children. Many of you have smart, and some will have some that aren't so smart, and you have to understand that happens too, and that's all, and you're going to love them just as much. But, I have smart children, and they've been good academically, et cetera, et cetera. But very importantly, I would always tell them, no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. No drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. And they'd go out, and Ivanka would say, Dad, stop telling me that. I said, I'm going to tell it to you every time I see you. I'm going to drive you wild with this. You're going to, no drugs, no alcohol. And I would say that. And I hope that, because who knows, right? But they don't have any of those problems. I mean, I've seen friends, very smart people, they have smart kids, but their kids get hooked on drugs or they get hooked on alcohol. Alcohol is, in many ways, like they tell me, I don't know. I never had a glass of alcohol. I had a brother who was a wonderful guy, but he had an alcohol problem. And he sort of do the same. He said, don't ever drink alcohol. He was, and he smoked, and I put cigarettes in that same category, almost that same category, but they're certainly not good for you. But I would always tell my kids, because I've seen parents that had brilliant children, went to the best schools, they were great, but they got hooked on drugs or alcohol, and they never made it. They couldn't compete, basically. They never made it. And many of them are dead. Many of them die. They die with this fentanyl that's coming in. I'm going to get that problem. I had that problem almost solved with President Xi, by the way, and I said, you have to impose the maximum penalty, or we're not going to, I would always talk about trade. We have the power of trade. And I said, well, we're just not going to get along on trade. Hence, I could do things like we talked about. I don't want to go into it, but we can do things. And he and I had a handshake on he was going to impose the maximum penalty on people that run companies that sell us through Mexico. Almost all of it comes through Mexico. And the maximum penalty is the death penalty. And he was going to impose that. And then we had the transfer power. And this guy came in and he didn't know what to do with anything. And so that went down the tubes. But one of the first things I'm going to do is talk to him about that, because they were going to give the death penalty to anybody sending fentanyl into this country. And that would have really solved a lot of the problem. And the other thing I say, and it's not nice to settle like saying it, but, I've seen a lot of countries. I deal with all of them, and I know that all of them. And the only ones that don't have a drug problem are the ones that have the death penalty. We can set up all of our blue ribbon committees. Everybody calls me. You would call me. My friends call me. Could I be on that blue ribbon committee? And they'd have a blue ribbon committee on drugs and how to stop, these drug lords who are very smart people, very, very vicious, very smart. And we'll have these people from New York, some dilettantes, and they didn't want to talk about it. They just want to be a part of, whatever it is. The only ones that stop drugs, the only ones, are the ones that have the death penalty. And you have to remember, it sounds horrible, but what's more horrible is what they do to our country, because on average, he or she, male or female, drug dealer, will kill 500 people. And that doesn't include the families that are devastated. I know families that lost a son or lost a daughter. They've never been the same. I mean, they're like different people. You talk to them, and they're just, years later, I say, has it gotten better? No, it's gotten worse, they tell me. And there's nothing worse than that, and nothing worse than that. And it's because of drugs. It's because if maybe it's too much for the American people to go with, but I will say this: the only countries that solve their drug problem, China. I went to President Xi. I said, so. First time I met him, I said, do you have a drug problem? No. 1.4 billion people. And why don't you have a drug problem? He says, death penalty, quick trial. What's a quick trial? The dealer is immediately put on trial. They don't have 9 years of legal and then another 9 years of appeals, 22 years later, and then they're released. No, this is, they don't play games, and, it's a tough deal. But he said, quick trial. I said, what is quick trial? Immediate trial. And you know what the drug dealers do? They say, hey, let's get the hell out of here fast. They don't play games. They don't play games. They even send the bullet to the family, and they make them pay for the bullet. They make them pay for the bullet. It's vicious, but they have no drug problem. With 1.4, they had a drug problem for centuries, with the poppy fields, with all the things. And they realized countries were taking them over that were much smaller, they were being decimated because everybody they had a tremendous drug problem. But it stopped years ago, and it was the death penalty. And I can tell you, we could set up all the committees, blue ribbon, and headed by so-and-so, a society person from Madison Avenue. But I will tell you that it's a waste of time. The only thing that's going to stop, and we got it down. I got it down 19%. That's great, but but it's not like I got it down, and we worked like hell. We had so much security in the border. We had the German Shepherds. There's a certain dog, a certain type of German Shepherd. So they have millions of dollars worth of machinery, and they have a dog, and it's a certain German Shepherd. Some of you know what it is. It has a sense of smell that's so incredible that the machine is nothing by comparison, nothing. And it's incredible to see. Incredible. But we watched it very closely on the border. We had a lot of dogs that did this incredibly well, and we had a lot of very expensive machinery that did it good, not great, but they did it good, not nearly as good, believe it or not. And we had it down about 19%, and that was it. It was very tough. With the death penalty, you would eradicate drugs in this country. But and I talk about it a lot. I say that because maybe people have to get used to it because it sounds harsh. But when you think of it, if they do kill on average 500 people, everybody in this room knows a lot of people that they lost a child, or sometimes their father or mother, but they've lost a child to fentanyl. And that wouldn't have happened if we had the death penalty. But the country's going to have to tell us that they're ready for it, because, you know, it's a pretty big step.
You mentioned the Abraham Accords and Israel. This community is one of the largest Arab communities in the United States here, Dearborn, Michigan, and we have a thriving and very, very large Jewish community. Upon your inauguration, what will you do to accelerate the Abraham Accords and peace in the Middle East? What can we possibly do at this point in time to change the direction right now and move forward?
It's got to change. It's got to change fast. Also, the Abraham Accords, well, we did that. Nobody believed it. We had 4 very important countries early on, and we would have had all of them in. I even make the statement, I said it the other day, I even think we would have had Iran in, if you can believe it. I really believe that, because they were ready to make a deal. Biden lost an unbelievable opportunity. And now they're very rich, and I don't know, they view it perhaps differently, but, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say they're doing so good either. But I will tell you this, we have to have peace throughout the world, and if we don't have peace throughout the world, we're not smart people, because it doesn't make sense. You know, I've stopped a lot of wars from starting. I was very proud of that. People don't know, but there are countries that were going to war, and I stopped them using trade to stop them. I use trade. I threaten trade. I'd say you're not going to do business with the United States if you do. There's countries that have been fighting for centuries, essentially, and stop, and then they go, kill a lot of people. Crazy, but I've stopped a lot of people. And but the Abraham Accords were very important, and you had really peace. You had the Arabs and the Jews getting along, and those are for the 4 countries. Now, it should have been many countries right now. It's still the same 4. Think of it. When I left, we were going to sign people as fast as you can think, and they could have done the same thing. But they didn't have the talent. They didn't have the administration to do it. And they even agreed it was a good thing. It was a good thing. It was actually a great thing. If I were named Obama, I would have had the Nobel Prize given in 10 seconds. He got the Nobel Prize. He didn't even know what the hell he got it for. Remember, he got elected. Well, so did I. He got elected, and they announced he was getting the Nobel Prize. Remember, he said, "Oh, what did I do?" He didn't know what the hell he did. He got the Nobel Prize for doing nothing, for getting elected. But I got elected too. And you know, if I think of that, we did something, the Abraham Accords, unprecedented. Nobody thought it was possible. And I'm not saying want or not. I'm just saying if it was anybody else, liberal, Democrat, they would have had it before the damn thing was even signed, you know. So there has to be fairness, and I don't care, but I'm not looking for it. I'm not politicking for it. I'm just saying that there's a lot of unfairness in this world, and I think when you do things, you should really be, you can have peace in the Middle East. You can get along. This was a start. This would have been so important if you could have had almost all of the countries, and maybe even Iran. I mean, Iran would be the outlier, but maybe even Iran at a certain point. I really believe I could have gotten them all, including Iran. And Iran, everybody would have been happy. You would have had peace in the Middle East. And you would have had the Arabs getting along with the Jews and the Jews getting along with everyone else. It would have been so beautiful. And they wasted this great opportunity. It's so sad.
So we have time for one final question, and it's a DEC tradition. We have many young adults and students in the audience today, and so I want to end with this final question. What advice to your 25-year-old self would you give to the young people today, and especially the ones in this audience?
Okay, so I met some people backstage who were young, and some really beautiful people, great people, smart as can be from colleges and schools. And I think what I'd do is I'd listen to the speech I made, and I'd say maybe, because they really would like to stay here. They grew up here. And I'd follow. And I will say this, if I implement, and I will be able to do it, I will. If we win the election, I would stay right here, and I would follow the gravy train, because you're going to have such a great opportunity right in the area that you want to be. You want to be here because your grandparents here and your parents are here, and people are there. They don't want to leave. They've been forced to leave this area because of politicians that didn't know what they were doing. I would say stay tuned for a little while. Let's see what happens in the election. This area will be thriving like probably almost no area in the country. I think this area will be one of the hottest areas in the country. And I think you can stay here. You'll get a great job because we're going to have a lot of opportunities right here in Michigan, and you want to stay here because of your parents. A lot of them really, they told me backstage, I'd love to stay here, but there's no real jobs here. And when you look at those horrible statistics with the auto workers and with the, what's happening to the industry, you understand it. But if we win, I would stay here, and you watch what's going to happen. You'll be happy. You'll be happier here than, and I think more successful here than any other place in the country. You will have the American dream. We have to bring back the American dream. You don't even hear that statement anymore. And we have to have the American dream for our young people, and you'll have it right here in Michigan.
Mr. President, thank you. I'm looking forward to all those auto plants that I'm going to be building back here in Michigan in the Midwest. It's okay. They all know anyways. Every time you're on TV or on the radio, somebody calls me up and said, the president was talking about you again. Thank you so much. And that's the end of our program today. Thank you all for coming. Let's give the president a standing ovation.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
I don't want to get him involved. But
No. They all know.
You should be proud of it. Yeah,